Ahora puedes demostrar tu orgullo hispano mientras manejas en la carretera con la nueva tablilla o placa de auto hispana conmemorando los 500 años del descubrimiento de Florida por Juan Ponce de León.
Obtén tu tablilla hispana este año y harás la diferencia.
Solo 1,000 se necesitan para hacerla permanente.
Su donativo ayudará a estudiantes con becas.
Nuestra comunidad se beneficiará con más programas y servicios.
Resalta nuestra cultura, nuestras raíces.
Demostremos que en la unión está la fuerza.
Obtén tu tablilla hispana en el Departamento de Vehículos de Motor más cercano o llama hoy al 321-277-0850.
Hi, I'm Danny Ramos, and welcome to this week's edition of Hispanic Speak Out TV, brought to you every week on Bright House Cable TV. We've been on the air for the past 9 years on Bright House. We want to thank Bright House for their cooperation for getting the Hispanic community on their network. I'm here today with Jose, my co-host, and Jose was out for a while. He was ill, but I'm glad he's back. Before I start with Jose, I want to introduce you once again to the Lawyers Consumer Directory. Don't hire a lawyer until you get this book. When you react to a TV commercial, you're going to be speaking to only one lawyer. Pick up this book. It's going to give you tips on all the subjects such as divorce, bankruptcy, foreclosure, and what to ask a lawyer before you hire them. This book is absolutely free of charge at every 7-Eleven store in the state of Florida. So pick up this book. It's free of charge. It's chock full of information that you really need to read. Okay? It's the Lawyers Consumer Directory, 170 7-Eleven stores in your neighborhood. Jose, how you doing?
Getting over the Republican.
You didn't? Did you watch it? Did you watch it?
I did.
You did?
I did.
Okay.
I did. And after I finished throwing up,
okay,
I felt so much better. Come
on, you don't like Condoleezza Rice? She's, you know.
Well, it's nice. Condi's trying to make a comeback, and for the future. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what future that is. I think she should have just kept going along with Bush.
You got to respect her, though. You know what I mean?
I think she's very articulate. I think Clint Eastwood was very funny, talking to an empty chair.
I got a chuck out of Clint Eastwood. He really made me laugh.
I mean,
there's a lot of people that didn't like what he did.
What purpose does he serve? He's a good movie star. Okay, yeah. I like some of his movies, but this isn't a fistful of dollars.
I think that, they're trying to just take the sharp edge off that everybody in Hollywood is for Democrats. So they bring in a couple of people that are actors that support the Republican agenda.
Do you remember this is the same guy who produced the commercial that says we fight in America?
Yeah, I remember that.
Okay, and that was allegedly against Romney and allegedly against Republicans.
Well, he's flipped. People flip.
And that's great. No.
Why can't people flip?
Exactly, that's exactly what we have in Romney.
I think I flip well, I'm a flipper.
Okay, no, not like Romney. Romney's a flipper.
What I see is this. You have two extraordinary human beings. They're both extraordinary human beings. Mitt Romney is an extraordinary human being. He's extremely talented. Barack Obama is an extraordinary human being. He's extremely talented. They're both highly gifted leaders. The real question is,
leaders of what? What has Romney led?
Okay. What Romney is an extremely gifted business leader. Now, listen, wait a second. Let me take it down. Now, what is business? I'm going to tell you something. I employ people.
Yes.
I'm an employer. I employ people. Okay? My job is to make sure.
Are you a tyrant?
No, my job is to make sure that the company that I'm leading, as small as it is, it's not a big company, stays solvent. If I have to fire somebody in order to keep that company solvent, okay, because I may lose a contract or something like that,
so you think
and
this
I have
is just
no
about
choice,
firing?
No, I think it's a misinterpretation of what business is all about. Some people look at business and they say, oh, business people are bad. Well, I'm a business person. I'm not a bad person. But I do have to be conscious of the bottom line. I got to do payroll every Friday, and I struggle to do payroll every Friday. So if I don't have enough money to make payroll and I have to make a hard decision, I'll make the hard decisions. Either I cut back somewhere, I cut back on personnel, I can cut back on a project that's not doing well. I have to make a business decision. And I think people are negative towards Romney because he's made decisions that are huge decisions to lay people off in order to save a company. Now, there is the question where he was selling off companies. He would go in and raid a company.
He's a raider. He's a corporate raider. That's his job.
In some instances,
that's his job. He was a corporate raider.
In some instances, it turned out to be a building. The raid actually built the company, and in some cases, they didn't. There was a decision made to divest the company of its assets because the company could not survive no matter what. So on the other side, Obama has to make hard decisions. Okay, so I look at it very simply, Jose. I look at it very simply. Romney is going to take an approach where he is going to let go or divest a large portion of entitlements. There's where Romney's going to get his money. He's going to try to balance the budget, getting rid of a lot of entitlement programs.
On the backs of the poor.
On the back, okay, because most of the entitlement programs are given to poor people, you're right.
And minorities.
And minorities. Obama has a different approach. He's going to
tax the rich.
He's going to tax rich people. They both have a similar tax policy for the middle class. But where does Obama going to get the money for the entitlements? Okay, he's going to chop the military budget, which he already took almost $1 trillion off the military budget. So he's going to suck off a lot of money off the military. And I think that's where the basic difference really is. The basic difference is they both have to cut no matter what. The country is going to go down the chute. It's spending money it doesn't have. Obama's going to do the same thing that Romney's going to do. He's just going to target a different sector to cut the budget.
Do you think it's time for the people that are well off, in the millions, to pay higher taxes? This man himself, a corporate raider who makes money no matter what he does, whether he gains a company or sells a company, okay, he makes money. Do you think it's right for him to pay 13% taxes?
I have a big problem with that. I'll tell you what my problem is.
Or have
the 13%.
Or have the money in offshore banks.
This is one of the things that I really agree with you on. I really do. I don't like the idea that he didn't put his taxes on the table, and he threw out, I paid 13%, right? People are assuming he paid 13%, $100 million. He didn't say that. He said he paid 13% on what is taxable.
Right.
So if he has a lot of that money sheltered, he may have paid 13% on 50 grand.
Right.
Because the rest is all sheltered.
Right.
But he never defined if that 13%.
And nobody's asking him.
And nobody's really asked that hard question.
Right. Nobody's asking.
Okay, 13% of what?
Right.
Because he has the money hidden in these accounts that you can't tell. You know what I mean?
Right. You can't tap into them either.
So he takes his budget out to live. Right? Whatever it is, 250, 500, whatever it is, and then he pays 13% on that.
Right.
But he didn't pay 13% on the 400 million.
No.
So the real question is, what was the amount of the 13%? You know what I mean? That's the real question that nobody has asked him.
No, and he's not going to answer either.
He's not going to answer.
Okay.
And I don't like the idea that he's getting away with it, and I don't like the idea that CNN has not climbed all over his back on it, and I don't like the idea that Fox News you understand, but CNN and MSNBC, they don't push that agenda.
They've been asking questions, and fact-checking a lot of stuff he's saying, which has come up against him. Okay, but again,
that's another thing, Jose. These politicians, when I do, politicians manipulate the moment. But it's good that the media is fact-checking everybody.
Well, I agree with that. I think it's about more than about time. But now let's switch gears slightly. Let's talk about the policies. Okay, we have a conservative agenda that's anti-woman, basically, despite the fact that Romney did his father would give a rose to his mom every day, and then sadly, and it's a touching story, don't get me wrong.
Okay, is anti-woman, can you say a person is anti-woman because they're anti-abortion? Okay? Or can they be pro-women, just anti-abortion? I mean, there is a segment there.
No, we have a segment of this population, if you don't want to go left or right, that's me. That hasn't bothered to approve a woman's right to work, you know, the equality pay. We also have issues of seniority issues. We have, and this is goes on and on and on.
Okay, let me back you down a little bit on that. Obama's been in for 4 years. He had the House and he had the Senate. Okay?
I had the discussion this morning.
Okay, all right. So he had the House and he had the Senate. He had the time to change all of that, just like he did with the health care.
He didn't. He did not have. He did not. Even
he
though
had the House and the Senate.
That's fine. He had it on paper. And the reality check is that the Democrats with no spines were against him. They were more Republican conservative than they were Democrats.
So you're saying the Democrats weren't supporting Obama in the first 4 years?
Exactly. He had no support.
Okay. All right. Well,
now the question becomes, why didn't he have
But then you
support?
can't blame the Republicans for that. You have to blame the Democrats.
I blame the Republicans for filibusters that never existed before. We had more filibusters during this during
That's
these
part of the
sessions.
political process, Jose.
We have never had.
It doesn't matter.
Amount.
It's like saying
we have
I
never
found
known.
a tool to run my nonprofit.
They found a tool to stop government. Okay, before even the most belligerent or stubborn of these guys would reach across the aisle and make some kind of deals. I mean, this is an ongoing thing. We're going to be discussing this for weeks.
The Democrats should have supported Obama in all his agendas, and they didn't. There were conservative Democrats. There were guys in Tennessee that were Democrats that were afraid they were going to get kicked out.
Let's go by Tennessee.
But that's a problem with Obama's people, not a problem with the Republican Party.
Let's go by Tennessee. Still a very large population of Republicans. A Democrat won. He's concerned about his seat, okay? And so he's not going to rock the boat and support the president, okay?
Of course, I understand.
So this is about keeping a schmuck that doesn't belong in office.
You're right,
again.
but he's still a Democrat.
And
so
what we should do is limit these guys to one term. All of them.
Well, I don't know about one term because it takes them one term to learn where they're supposed to go to the bathroom.
Oops.
You know what I mean?
Oops.
You know, it's like, okay, one term. Where's the toilet? You know,
they should have a limited amount of time in office. This should not be. This is not a career path.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you on that. I absolutely agree, because what happens is they start building up all of these favors and money from lobbyists.
It's power.
But that's another subject. That's another subject. Guess what? We ran out of time. We're going to take a break right now, and we are going to walk into the segment called You and the Law. Be back in a minute, and we'll see you shortly. We'll see you also next week.
Ahora puedes demostrar tu orgullo hispano mientras manejas en la carretera con la nueva tablilla o placa de auto hispana conmemorando los 500 años del descubrimiento de Florida por Juan Ponce de León.
Obtén tu tablilla hispana este año y harás la diferencia.
Solo 1000 se necesitan para hacerla permanente.
Su donativo ayudará a estudiantes con becas.
Nuestra comunidad se beneficiará con más programas y servicios.
Resalta nuestra cultura, nuestras raíces.
Demostremos que en la unión está la fuerza.
Obtén tu tablilla hispana en el Departamento de Vehículos de Motor más cercano o llama hoy al 321-277-0850.
And welcome back to Speak Out TV. This evening, our guest is David Stoller. He's attorney here in Central Florida, immigration attorney, in fact, for over 13 years. Welcome to Speak Out TV.
Thank you very much for being here.
Very good. Just tell yourself, just a little bit about yourself and what your areas of practice of law and how we can best help, families out there that are seeking to become citizens of the United States.
All right, well, my personal story is I'm a graduate of Nova Southeastern University of Law down in Fort Lauderdale. When I was down there, there was a position in the Career Services Index for an intern to work with the old Immigration and Naturalization Service. I took it, got the job. And I got hired out of law school and spent 3 years being what was called at the time an assistant district counsel. I was the government representative in deportation and exclusion hearings. I gave advice to the operational components of the INS. and eventually moved my way up to Orlando when they opened up a permanent court here, and in '99 left to go off into private practice. And a couple years later, actually 2009, I became board certified. So I'm one of, I believe there's 61 or 62 of us now who have gone above and beyond normal passing the bar and have taken a specialized exam to call ourselves experts in the area of immigration and nationality law.
That's very good, because I can say I have a dear friend of mine that was just recently detained. We were talking about that just a little bit before the interview. And one thing I learned in just a little bit of research, I'm in foreclosure law, so I start to see all the loopholes and all the craziness that kind of goes on in different aspects of law. But when you specialize, you obviously stay on top of any changes, anything that you can recommend to these families out there that are seeking to get citizenship. So what have you found? I mean, there's been so many changes in the last, I'm going to say 5 years, just in, you know, foreclosure law and a lot of different things that are happening in the courtrooms. Has everything been pretty much typical, the way you file things? Has anything really changed that these families need to know, or anybody coming into the United States, what they need to know? Any things that have changed?
I mean, certainly I think September 11th was a huge watershed moment in looking at how we deal with immigrants here in the United States, both legal and illegal. You know, honestly, the law hasn't really changed all that much. There is some tweaking that's gone on in the past 12 years now. But what's gone on is that there's been an enormous amount of funding that's been thrown at what is now the Department of Homeland Security. And with increased funding comes increased programs. Okay. With increased programs comes increased awareness. And now there's a lot of things that you could probably get away with maybe 5-10 years ago that you don't get away with anymore, because the funding's there, the people are in place, and there's a lot of nets to catch what otherwise would be people that kind of sneak through the system before, which resulted in a lot. I mean, a lot of the folks that were that perpetrated September 11th, they were people that were known to the U.S. government, that were here in both illegal and legal states, who had left the country but the government didn't know, who had come back but the government didn't know. Sure. It really showed a lot of flaws in the system. Well, and tightening that up has been a priority.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of shocking things on that side that I learned when 9/11 happened. The one thing that I would like to ask, because I just really want to understand, because in my research trying to help my friend to see what I could do in my realm of research, why is it he was detained down in Miami, okay, and I'm trying to think of the facility down there.
There's either the Chrome detention facility.
Chrome, it's Chrome. And he was down in Chrome, and then all of a sudden they flew him to Texas. And then supposedly he might be going to another detention center. What I'm trying, and what I found in my research is like $12,000 per immigrant that they're moving around like this to put on a plane, to put them to the next one, to put them to the next one. Where's this money coming from, and why do they move them so much?
Well, one of the things is, like I said before, funding to the Department of Homeland Security, especially removal matters when they're trying to both detain folks and actually deport them. That has received an enormous upswing of dollars in the budget lines over the past decade. What happens is that you get bottlenecks. The Chrome detention facility is a huge complex down in western Dade County, and what happens is when the bed space fills up and there's no other space to put people, they start moving people around to other facilities. And as you can imagine, the Department of Homeland Security has, fortunately or unfortunately, gotten into the business of having detained people, because there are so many people that are now being caught up in enforcement operations. And so ICE, which is Immigration and Customs Enforcement, typically maintains control over someone's whereabouts. And you, as an attorney, as a friend, as a family member, have absolutely no say in where that person is going to go. Now, in Miami, not the law, but the practice has been, if that person needs a hearing before a judge, and you can get that case scheduled before a judge here in Florida, typically speaking, they will keep the person here with that judge for consistency. But a lot of this stuff happens without us knowing as attorneys, without families knowing.
Exactly.
And all of a sudden you look and your person that you thought was in one place turns out to be someplace else.
That's exactly what happened to my friend. I mean, we actually hired an attorney for him, and then exactly what you're saying. Everything was going fine. They filed the motions not only in Dade County, Orange County, but even up in Virginia, where the actual immigration, I guess, office is located, to let them know that they filed these motions in the hopes of keeping him there. For one whole week, they had no idea that he had been relocated to Texas. So that seems just a little odd to me. If they know that he's supposed to get a hearing to hear his case, and the motion has been set, and these judges know that, why would they not keep him in Dade County so that transport to come up here obviously makes more sense?
Well, and there's a lot of money that gets spent. There's the movie Con Air. I don't know if you ever saw it, where they actually, there's these flights called JPATS, JPATS. It's an airline system operated by the federal government used to transport prisoners around to the federal prisons. Well, immigration got into the business, and they've been using those planes to move people from facility to facility, and also for the purpose of deporting people. There's actually one of the positives that's come out of the past couple of years is there's a thing called the online detainee locator system, where if you have some information about an individual, it will tell you where that person is, although there are holes in that system as well, because when persons are moved from one facility to another, or when they first come into custody, it can be 24 or 48 hours before you really know where that person is.
Well, because you also have to know like their alien number. There's a lot of information that, you know, unless you're really intimately involved with that person or know that family, it's, you know, it's not easy to get that information. What do you find in the process? Because I know in foreclosure defense, there's so many frustrations on our end when it comes to presenting a case and going in front of a judge and pleading our arguments. What is usually I'm going to ask you, the most frustrating thing that you face in helping someone become a citizen of the United States?
What I think is it requires knowledge of a lot of acronyms, because there's lots of different agencies that do lots of different things. For instance, we were talking about, well, if the judge knew that this motion was filed, why wouldn't they keep the person here to hear argument or to hear the case out? Well, the deal is that ICE, which is in control of the body, is different from the immigration court, which is in control of the case.
Correct.
And so a lot of times the judge has no jurisdiction, and in fact doesn't have jurisdiction, to order ICE where to put that person. So the person may be moved thousands of miles away from family, relatives, resources, and the immigration judges have no control but to say, okay, ICE, you moved them, we're going to move the case from here, there, to everywhere. And you've got all these different agencies that are involved. The old INS, the Immigration and Naturalization System, is now 3 agencies: Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Citizenship and Immigration Services, and Customs and Border Protection. In dealing with what is now 3 levels of bureaucracy is, as you can imagine, quite difficult when we were dealing with the one somewhat unified level of bureaucracy that we had when we had the INS.
Right.
So it's just become increasingly more difficult as kind of more fiefdoms have been created as the government of the U.S. has tried to deal with and create the Department of Homeland Security.
Now, do you think that's because it's increased with the number of immigrants wanting to come into this country? I mean, why do you have to have so many divisions of different levels and different ways to go through? I mean, why is that even happening?
That's a really good question. I guess if I could answer that one, I mean, a lot more things would make sense in the everyday practice of law, and that's part of, again, back to the question you asked about the frustrations. There's a lot of, well, that's not our province, that's those guys over here, or that's not our problem, go talk to this person over there. And there's a lot. It's like 3-card Monte. You never kind of know what's going on at one time, and everyone's passing the buck to somebody else, and it's frustrating to try and get a job done.
Yeah, and here you're just trying to assist people, help people the best that you can. You're hired to do a job, and I can see the frustration, because when I was doing the research, I said, forget it. I'm not getting into immigration law whatsoever. But we thank you for coming this evening. It was a joy to get some answers from you tonight.
Thank you.
Again, if you're looking for a really good immigration attorney, Attorney Dave Stoller, who's been in the Central Florida area, you actually can find him in the Central Florida Lawyers Consumer Directory at 7-Eleven stores. I believe we've got about 165 now that you can find it. It's also in Spanish, so for those families needing an immigration attorney that may not speak English, then they have it in Spanish as well. Also, remember to go out and support the Hispanic Achievers and get the license plate. This is for a really good cause, and it shows your spirit and how much you love to be Hispanic. So make sure when you go next to the DMV that you go and you get this license plate. Have a great evening. Thank you for being with us here tonight on Hispanic Speak Out TV. We'll see you next time.
Ahora puedes demostrar tu orgullo hispano mientras manejas en la carretera con la nueva tablilla o placa de auto hispana conmemorando los 500 años del descubrimiento de Florida por Juan Ponce de León.
Obtén tu tablilla hispana este año y harás la diferencia.
Solo 1000 se necesitan para hacerla permanente.
Su donativo ayudará a estudiantes con becas.
Nuestra comunidad se beneficiará con más programas y servicios.
Resalta nuestra cultura, nuestras raíces.
Demostremos que en la unión está la fuerza.
Obtén tu tablilla hispana en el Departamento de Vehículos de Motor más cercano o llama hoy al 321-277-08.